Hi, Dave here from Titanium Geek. Thank you very much for all those of you who've liked and subscribed and all that sort of stuff. It's a bit uncomfortable for me to ask. I almost feel like I'm begging, but we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you could come on that journey with us and subscribe and get us up there, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Anyway, to the really good stuff. So this week, what we thought we'd do is answer some of those questions that people ask a lot on the forums and the Facebook groups and all that sort of stuff. And the repeated questions, and you can understand people not fully understanding what these things mean. And what we're talking about here is slope, and it's slope when you're climbing. And what we mean by that is your turbo trainer, for example. We'll put a chart up here for the most expensive and least expensive and most popular turbo trainers available. Some of them, as you can see, will replicate slopes, either inclines up to 6% and some up to 25%. Roughly, the more you spend, the more replication you get. Now, why should you spend more for replication, and does it really matter? So let's get one thing out of the way. A watt's a watt. If you put out 300 watts, you've got to expend the energy to generate 300 watts. Whether that's uphill, downhill, that'll be hard, but anyway, on the flat, 300 watts is 300 watts. Yeah, sometimes it feels different. Anyway, that's enough of that one. So let's say you're preparing for a big event, and as we all saw yesterday on the Tour de France, we saw the most crazy, amazing stage of the Tour de France since probably 1989, and some people are saying it's the best time trial they've ever seen in their lives, and who thought time trials weren't exciting. But let's say you were preparing for a big thing like that. As we know, Tadej Pogačar, he really prepared for that time trial way before the Tour de France. So when he rode it, he knew exactly what he was tackling. Well, let's say you've got a big event coming on. And what we'll put up here is that stage of the Tour de France, stage 20 of 2020. Thank you very much, Valley Viewer, from this. And you can see that the incline, and the incline goes up to 17.6%. To be able to prepare for an event like that, now obviously not you doing the Tour de France, wouldn't it be great? But it could be anything. It could be a sporty if you're doing, you want to do a hill climb, you want to do an Everesting attempt or whatever, and you want to do it as accurately as real life as possible, but indoors in the garage in winter or whatever. To do 17.5% incline, what you'll need on the platform you use, Zwift or RGT or something like that, you'll need your settings on 100%. In the video here, we'll show you, Zwift typically most popular platform, we'll show you what you need to do to get the settings right. You slide your slider right the way up to 100%. Zwift defaults at 50%. If you're on RGT, you do it on the RGT app, and that defaults at 100%. So 100% on, let's say, a Tacx Neo 2T would mean if you were to do a climb of 25%, that turbo trainer will replicate slopes up to 25%. If the slope is 26%, it will replicate 25%. If the slope is 30%, it will replicate 25%. On this case, you go 17.5% slope. That's more than capable by a Tacx Neo 2T and many of the other top-end trainers. So therefore, it would feel just like climbing a slope in that way. Not the same as honking at the saddle in real life, but you know, for the feeling of the slope and the resistance. So you'd have to use the full range of your gears. If you have the setting on 50%, you're literally halving the slope. If we were to use another popular climb, and we use Alpe de Zwift, which is really Alpe d'Huez, and here's the Valley Viewer profile of Alpe d'Huez with a maximum climb around 12%. If you're on 100% slope, then you're going to feel the effort of going up, or the cadence resistance and the need to gear going up at a 12% climb. If you're on 0.5% or 50% on your slider, you're going up a 6% climb. If you're on one of the lower cost smart trainers, you're only ever going to feel on 100% replication, you're only ever going to feel a 6% incline, no matter what the incline says. So the watts are the watts, but you're not getting that feeling. So if you want to prepare for an event as accurate as possible, what you're going to need to do is to spend more on a turbo trainer. And that's why the more expensive turbo trainers have a higher rating slope, to cover those possible scenarios you'll have in training, to cover those real life climbs. All the lower cost smart trainer will do is enable you to get the feeling of doing, say, a 6% slope. Now, in context of doing other stuff, you might not really go outside that much. You might just want your turbo trainer for, you might want Zwift to be like a sort of alternative version of Peloton. And if you're doing a group ride on Zwift, typically as well, this is, you know, I love group rides on Zwift, or riding now with Coco around the Tempest Fuji course, and you just want to keep, let's say, 2.5 watts per kilogram. Now when you've got the higher you've got your slope settings, the harder it is to stay at the same pace as your leader or your pace partner, because as soon as you hit a slope you're going to push on more resistance, and you tend to go ahead, and so you get a few other people doing it and you end up flying off up the road, hence the phrase flyers. By moving your slider down to near zero, I tend to choose about 10%, so I still get a little feeling of the incline, so you know when to push on and not get dropped if the group slightly speeds up. Well, literally all you do is you keep that slider down there, and you can keep spin out in the same gear. For example, second sprocket up at the back and little ring, and you can keep 200 and 205 watts. For me is about 2.5 watts per kilogram, and you just 200 watts, yeah, so you can, did that make sense? Anyway, so you just do that, and you just keep a steady pace all the way around. There's no changing gears. So the lower you go to the zero, or the nearer to the zero you get, the less you have to do as far as changing gears. The more you go to 100%, the more gears you need to change, and the more you need to ensure that you've got the right gears for the climbs you're doing. That's another important thing. It's all about the context of the training you're doing. Hopefully that makes sense, but remember, a watt's a watt. The more you spend on a trainer, the more optionality you have for replicating real life training, real life mountains and stuff like that. The less you spend, watt accuracy aside, you're not going to get that replication. So thanks for watching. Hopefully that's helpful. Questions, comments down below. See you again soon. Ride on, ride free.